Welcome back, nerds. Today we are headed to Hell's Kitchen to talk about all the people that keep Daredevil busy when Kingpin and Bullseye aren't acting up. Here are 10 Daredevil villains that only superfans will remember. 10. Jester. Jester was an actor first and a bad one. He did everything he could to improve his craft though, like taking classes to expand his abilities, fencing, gymnastics, basically doing everything but taking an acting class. He got fed up and decided that if people wanted to laugh at others' expense, then he would become the ultimate jester. He hired someone to make him gimmicky weapons, which I love because I always wondered where villains would get their hyper-specific themed gadgets. Jester was quite the troublemaker, creating false newscasts claiming JFK was still alive, that wars never happened, fake commercials, framing heroes. There were multiple times when Jester reached acting success though and promptly gave up his life of crime, only to return in the end when it all dried up. 9. Deathstalker. It's actually unclear why he turned to crime because he was rich and from a powerful family, but either way, he was part of the plot that got Daredevil stuck between the physical Earth and an interdimensional realm. Daredevil was able to escape, but Stalker went in next. He could manifest a physical body on Earth, but he was kind of like a ghost, always returning back to where he came from. In the end, him and Daredevil fought in a graveyard, and Stalker miscalculated, becoming physical again while jumping through a tombstone and literally splitting himself in half. His mother avenged his death by rigging her mansion with traps and robots, and then there was a moment where Stalker was sent to the future for some reason before he died, found out what happened to him, crashed out, and then was just sent back in time with no memory of the event for some reason. 8. Matador. The Matador was actually a matador first, so at least we know where he got his name from, but he was vain and power hungry. He made some odd choices when it came to his actual profession and quickly lost public favor for his brutal methods in the ring. He was later part of the Daredevil false memories plot, but that part was not intentional. He didn't plan on doing that. 7. Ramrod. Ramrod was a construction boss involved in a pretty serious accident. He was taken by Broderick and Moondragon and genetically engineered into a cyborg for their gain. He was told that his makers could poison him at any time using his implanted metal parts, and through this blackmail fought Daredevil to try and gain control of LA. Did it work though? No, absolutely not. 6. Micah Sin. Chief of an African tribe, Micah was a piece of work. He wasn't respectful at all, he stole, he was rude, he fought anything that opposed him. He was just like a general menace to society. He even had an affair with Foggy Nelson's wife. A lot of Daredevil fans actually hated this run, citing poorly written dialogue, outdated themes and attitudes, and just generally being lackluster. In the end, Micah defeated himself due to a poor diet and being in New York City pollution. 5. Collective Man. This villain is actually 5 brothers merged into one. When they merged together, they apparently gained a connection to everyone in China. The connection allows Collective Man to draw on power from any Chinese person they want. Drawing on 10,000 people's strength gave Collective Man enough muscle to handle Sasquatch, but it's not all sunshine and rainbows. The brothers almost passed away from absorbing too many people's life forces at one time. The brothers also have a very odd ability. They can make any Chinese person a clone of one of the brothers and then merge with them. They have a hive mind, meaning they can mentally speak to each other, plus if they just want to speak to each other the old-fashioned way, but they're far away, they can teleport to where their brother happens to be. 4. Black Shadow and White Shadow. This mutant's name went unrevealed, but Wolverine gifted him the nickname of Man Mountain, so there is that. The mutant in question has multiple personality disorder, and that went hand in hand with his mutant status because he was capable of generating shadow energy forms. So for 2 of his personalities, he had 2 shadowy figures, Black Shadow and White Shadow. Black Shadow was destruction. Everything it saw was fair game to be messed up. White Shadow was set on stopping Black Shadow, and the mutant, well, he was trapped in an asylum while the shadows ransacked the city. 3. El Tigre. Juan Merzos was a treasure hunter specifically focused on treasures from the ancient world, and he's a menace. That is literally what he is described as on the cover of his debut comic. He found an amulet that belonged to a Mayan sun god, granting him an array of powers like telepathy, telekinesis, and something called precognition, knowing if danger is coming or near. El Tigre, with all those powers, only exists when he has part of the Sky God's amulet. When both pieces are put together, then he just turns into the Sky God. 2. Pink Lady. She's so fun and isn't so much a villain as she is just like a general troublemaker. Her and Wolverine cross paths because Wolverine was tasked with capturing the pink mink. When the pink mink is exposed to oxygen, the Pink Lady appears, and here on Earth we have a lot of that oxygen. She spent some time here in Toronto, Canada when she was captured by Hunter Joe. Pink Lady had limited hypnotic powers and unlimited teleportation abilities. She was in search of fun, and I mean, girls just want to have fun, so you can't really blame her for that at all. 1. Road Show Brotherhood. Nightcrawler was a circus boy and then was tipped off about some monsters posing as as humans. The monsters pretty quickly surrendered to Wolverine and Nightcrawler, and it didn't take long for the pair to realize the fake humans weren't the real monsters. That would be Nightcrawler's childhood friend that runs the road show Brotherhood. The gaggle of villains are strange to say the least. They're all supercharged versions of like classic circus acts. There's a bearded lady that can control her facial hair so she can make it grow really, really long and trap you in it. The strong man is just like extra strong. There's clowns. I don't know what powers they have, but they bite a lot. The circus was used by a scientist for experimentation, and in return, they got powers to fight the monsters. Wolverine puts an end to Nightcrawler's deranged former childhood friend, and unfortunately, the monsters are no more by the end of the issue 2. They do forgive the humans forgive the monsters, but there's just no monsters at the end, unfortunately, and no circus either, fortunately. 10. Blood Shadow, a Wolverine villain with a very cool concept. His mutant ability was telepathy, with the added benefit of a complete understanding of the human body and what nerves to hit to make someone pass out. So he will not only know your next move in a fight using his telepathy, he will do that and also calculate in his head what nerve bundles he will have access to in that moment and press them so you pass out. It makes Blood Shadow leave most fights unscathed and his opponent absolutely crumpled. In his final appearance, Blood Shadow took telepathy a bit too far, attempting to mess with Wolverine's head. He accidentally unlocked Wolverine's basic animal instincts, and soon he was nothing more than a puddle. 9. Smoke and Succubus. Not much is known about these villains since they appeared and disappeared just as quick. Smoke is a cloud of smoke that can still be hurt. Wolverine sliced right across the middle, and the two halves of smoke never actually came back together. Succubus was not a lizard, but she really looked like one. She had a tongue that was very long, so that meant she could grab things with it. She appeared very strong and had pointy claws and teeth. Neither of the two villains survived past their second appearance. 8. Pretty Boy. Pretty Boy is pretty and has some pretty cool cybernetic implants that can expand to be 3 times their length. He can access a person's brain using fiber optic filaments in his eyes, and then he just kind of like reprograms you. Pretty Boy is known for his affiliation with Donald Pierce and a membership in the merc group The Reapers. 7. Conquistador. Orlando Furio wanted to conquer the world, so he kidnapped Beast and his parents to get Hank to steal a mini energy reactor to power a machine designed to create global disasters. The X-Men eventually arrived and made sure that machine would never be used even once, and freed Hank and his parents. The Conquistador was really committed to his bit though. He carried a sword designed to look like what the Conquistadors would have had that split into a 3-pronged stun weapon, and not only did he dress the part, but he managed to find a bunch of other people who were also willing to dress like that to be his henchmen. He operated out of a building that was either from that time or built in that fashion, and no one is doing it like this anymore. Please just bring back villains that had a theme and stuck to it. 6. Bloody Bess. We love her, a pirate, part of the Crimson Pirates, fighting the X-Men and taking the team. Bess was in charge of keeping them in check. The X-Men did escape, of course, like they're the X-Men, and Bess later returned and even had a little moment with Nightcrawler. They had a little thing going. Last we know of Bloody Bess, she has dedicated her days to finding her old pirate friends. All in all, very cool character on a cool team, and yet she has less than 10 appearances, which is a crime. 5. Iconoclast. He was tasked with eliminating the Invisible Woman before she could do it to his people. Was she going to do that? Probably not. Iconoclast has access to advanced cloaking tech, rendering him invisible and intangible to anyone who wasn't the Invisible Woman, essentially. Or well, no one can know an invisible person quite like an invisible person. He was only defeated when his suit was disabled by water and exploded. 4. Oculus the Unforgiving. I mean, with a name like that. He earned the title by becoming the most powerful being in his realm and forcibly taking control. Oculus drew power from the gem in his right eye. He was ruthless and didn't even spare his own family, leading to them assisting the Fantastic Four in finding a way to defeat the man. In the end, he wasn't actually defeated, just launched into space, so he could come back, it's just gonna take a while. 3. Thorn. From the Salem 7, we have Thorn. He looks so special. As you might guess from the name, his offensive power is the ability to throw thorns that stun, cut, or explode. Honestly, I picked him because his full yellow morph suit and red thorns just looked a bit too goofy to pass up. 2. Tyrannith Gelstal. This villain actually rendered Reed Richards mindless. He stole his intellect. Tyrannith the alien crash-landed onto a planet in the negative zone and found himself in need of energy to get up and running again. He found that energy in the minds of the planet's inhabitants. Tyrannith posed as their ruler and would select people in the guise of being a chosen one and then just drain their brain. When the Fantastic Four encountered the planet, Reed was recognized by Tyrannith as a genius and quickly became the final piece to the puzzle. In the end, Reed's brain wasn't completely gone, and he managed to thwart the villain's plans, getting his brain back on Earth, although the alien had a lasting effect as Reed realized the ship still had the memories he recalled the least. And number 1, Dr. Doomsday. Truly, this is the worst that it could get for the team, and that is why they are number 1. From Marvel vs. DC, Dr. Doomsday is Marvel's Dr. Doom and DC's Doomsday in one villain. Folks, again, it can't get worse than that. All of their powers and intelligence mashed up into one champion of destruction. It's a miracle anyone even made it out alive. 10. The Jeweler. The villain that you've never seen or never were supposed to. The Jeweler doesn't come from the comics, but the 1994 unreleased Fantastic Four movie. Despite the movie never being released officially, copies still made the rounds, so maybe some true devoted fans have actually seen this guy. He stole a massive diamond and Alicia Masters before being defeated. The real tea with this though, the movie was unreleased, right? Well, apparently the rumor is that the studio only made the film because they needed to keep the rights to the characters but weren't ready to do a full-scale film yet, so they made this low-budget version and never actually intended to release it. However, the cast and crew didn't know that, which is pretty shady if it's true. 9. Airwalker. Airwalker was a herald of Galactus and became a herald willingly, which is pretty uncommon, but it ended up really working in his favor because he became one of Galactus's favorites. He got to hear all his super cool stories about the universe because Airwalker actually cared about them. In fact, when Airwalker did meet his end, Galactus created a perfect android replica of him and transferred the man's consciousness into it. 8. The Acrobat. The Acrobat got the Fantastic Four to work against each other. He convinced the Human Torch that his teammates were exploiting Johnny and taking credit for his work. So instead of working with them, he should team up with the Acrobat and become the Torrid Twosome, a heroic duo motivated by reward money. In the end, of course, the Acrobat was lying. He told Johnny that a bank teller was stuck in a vault, and Johnny did not clock the suspiciousness of that, melting his way into an empty room, giving the Acrobat the chance to blast the well-meaning hero with his asbestos spray and escape with the cash. The Acrobat went on to commit various other crimes, including impersonating Captain America and Hawkeye. 7. Jihad. This villain has appeared once, sent the team on a quest to find magical items for him, has goals to conquer all dimensions, and we will never see that come to pass, and not for the reason you think. See, most villains are defeated by the superheroes. Jihad was affected by real-world events. The villain's goals put a bad taste in people's mouths after the events of September in 2001, so it's really unlikely we're ever gonna see him again. 6. Hyperstorm. He was a big deal, but then just kind of disappeared. He's incredibly powerful because he is the son of Franklin Richards and Rachel Summers. He can do like every superpower ever created. I mean, not really, but it certainly feels that way. He frequently jumps through space and time, which is how he fought the Fantastic Four, and to top it all off, he also happens to have gotten the intelligence of his grandpa Reed. 5. Javelin. This Olympic athlete turned evil and no one knows why. You're going to guess pretty quick what his sport was based on his villain alias, Javelin. He created a variety of spear-like weapons. I mean, when you train as long as Olympians do, you better use the skills, even if it's for crime. He faced off against Hal Jordan and thwarted the hero at first, but ultimately was defeated. He ended up joining the Suicide Squad, seemingly died 3 times, and then was taken out by Supergirl in the end. 4. The Crumbler. The Crumbler intended to make his own modern-day radioactive Pompeii by attacking a nuclear plant with the hopes that the wind would carry the toxic ash miles. As a child, Alex's father thought science was useless, so he was forbidden from science, and well, look how that turned out. Should have just let him make the baking soda volcano. In the end, the plant did expel all its ash, but Hal Jordan created a giant green vacuum and sucked it all up. Easy peasy, the ash went to space and the villain to jail. 3. White Star. This Green Lantern villain tricked the hero into helping him commit crimes. White Star, the rodeo king, posed as a cowboy superhero to gain the trust of Alan Scott's Green Lantern. Once he had it, he convinced GL that they needed to break into a bunch of high-security buildings to catch the bad guys. Little did GL know, he was actually breaking into those buildings so the bad guy, White Star, could rob them. 2. The Juggler. This villain villain takes juggling pins where they have never gone before. It's hard juggling a job and a life of crime, so like why not combine the two and become a criminal that fights using juggling? Circus performer turned criminal was a surprisingly popular trope in the 40s. The juggler faced off against Alan Scott's Green Lantern. He had weaponized juggling pins and a juggling pin-shaped car to aid him, but it wasn't enough in the end and he was never seen again. 1. Mr. First. You get why he was in first place? This Green Lantern villain has a very important family legacy to uphold, being first in everything. Adam Adams' family name comes first in the alphabet, so therefore they must be first all the time. Mr. First decided that his legacy required him to become public enemy number 1 and also the first man to beat Green Lantern. Of course, he failed, but he did become the first inmate at a new prison. 10. Ranks. This villain was prophesied to be the end of the Green Lantern Corps. The sentient planet Ranks was apparently one day going to go out with a bang, ending itself and taking the Corps down with it. The planet became inhabited by ruffians and thugs that all hated the GLs. It eventually joined the evil Sinestro Corps, but in the end, the Green Lanterns are still kicking. 9. Molly Mayne. Have you ever crushed on someone so hard that you become a criminal? Molly Mayne has, and it actually worked out. Enemies to Lovers crew, you're gonna love this one. Molly developed a crush on Alan Scott's Green Lantern, so she decided to become the small-time criminal Harley Quinn to get his attention. Apart from a color combo that hurts the eyes, she was otherwise harmless and ended up actually marrying the hero. 8. The Fool. This ridiculous Green Lantern villain almost got the hero kicked off the team. The Fool lives up to his name. He commits seemingly foolish actions and takes seemingly worthless objects as his crimes. And yet, he outsmarted Alan Scott's Green Lantern time and time again. The villain escaped prison, flying out on a bubble, and uses toy-like gadgets to carry out his not-so-stupid nefarious deeds. In the end, GL was not removed from his detective team, as the man that suggested the action was actually the Fool in disguise, straight to jail. 7. The Aerialist. This Green Lantern villain went from being a literal circus clown to the most incredible aerialist you've ever laid eyes on. Sorry, Dick Grayson, but this man could perform aerial feats without even grabbing onto anything, thanks to the magnetic motors incorporated into his suit. He did it all in the name of love, and when that love was taken from him, he swore revenge and planned to let Hal Jordan take the fall. Jordan defeated the villain using static electricity, and he now sits heartbroken in jail. 6. Breakdown. Green Lanterns can essentially create anything with their rings, while Breakdown can essentially destroy anything. He can break down the molecules and rearrange them to be whatever he wants. Happens to a chair? Whatever. To a person? That is diabolical. The villain created his own villainous squad called the Burners, and he faced off against Guy Gardner in the Jail International. Ultimately defeated by being ripped apart, but like actually not in the molecule sense. 5. Claw. Claw set up quite the get-rich scheme. He rerouted a train that happened to be carrying all the leaders of big industries, says shipping, auto, etc., to his personal ghost town base. But he didn't hold these guys for ransom, no, he trained doubles for all of them and sent them off to be his inside men. The Flash saved the day by grabbing all those CEOs at super speed and then taking Claw through like an assembly line, so that's sandpaper, a water bath, until he agreed to get arrested. 4. Spin. Spin uses the media against the Flash, but in a non-traditional way. He forced a being that can make people's fear reality to watch the news 24/7, so whatever the residents of Keystone City were feeling scared of, that would materialize. But Spin would manipulate the situation as the guy in charge of the main news station. News of earthquakes in a nearby city is making the public anxious, and that's the distraction for his next robbery, for example. It was quite clever, just not clever enough to stick around. 3. Papercut. Papercut tried to become the next big supervillain, failed spectacularly. His power to control wood is no match for Kid Flash or anyone, considering he actually doesn't really control wood that well. He is better at controlling its byproducts, like paper. Instead of using that knowledge to, I don't know, rob a bank, he decides to fight Kid Flash in the park. Slips of paper versus Wally West, you can guess how that went. If Papercut was really smart, he would partner with a villain that sprays like lemon juice because God knows that exists. It's Condiment King. 2. The Eel. The Eel was a criminal that could slip away from any crime scene thanks to the grease gun that he carried with him. Literally, that was his whole thing. You can't arrest him if you can't get a hold of him. His other quirky moment was when he tried to send a bunch of people to jail thanks to blue laws, like if you didn't serve raw carrots with your dinner, jail jail. He also systematically built up a town. He hired the law enforcement and the mayor, attracted people to that location, and then flipped everything to his crime town with the law on his side. It was pretty genius, but foiled by the Flash at every turn. And finally, the Flash fought clouds, like actual clouds. The cloud creatures were sentient creatures that lived under the surface and caused earthquakes and volcanoes with the intention to eventually completely destroy the surface world. They would take on the appearance of a really angry cloud when invading the surface, and they would strike with lightning. Luckily, the Flash can defeat clouds by striking the nucleus, turning them into normal clouds. 10. Replicant. There is a villain that was basically family to every villain in the Flash's rogue gallery and trained with all of them, and he's only had 11 appearances. Replicant was the actual nephew of a tailor that made all of the outfits for all of the Flash villains, so he's basically an evil nepo baby. He fights using a device from the future called a humanifold that turns whoever it bonds to into a living weapon. It replicates powers, whether that be super or skill-based. 9. Insomnia. Insomnia is a newer villain from the Dark Knight's Metal event, and he's really creepy. He was a Justice League stan until the Justice League couldn't save his family, and then he lost it, just a little bit. He got some superpowers and went on a spree. He gained nightmare powers, trapping people in their worst nightmare, invading dreams, reality warping. He appeared to have passed in Night's End, but like I said, he is a newer villain, so he very much could return. 8. Altered Strain. Imagine you find out that you have the gene that gives people superpowers, only you're part of the lucky few that don't actually get any. That would be pretty frustrating, but it doesn't excuse wanting to rule like gods and attempting to kidnap an elected official, two things that the villain group Altered Strain attempted to do. The group wanted the government to give them money so that they can try and develop potential powers, despite never actually showing evidence that they have any. They've only popped up the one time. 7. Changeling. Changeling might be one of the only villains that Jay Garrick ever actually eliminated instead of just rehabilitated. He was a prisoner that planned to escape by sabotaging the power generator of his prison. It backfired and shocked him with so much electricity that it just gave him the power to transform into any animal. During his final battle with the Flash as a shark, Flash knocked him unconscious mid-transformation, and as he departs the scene, he says that only one of them could survive, and Changeling has never been seen again, so that is not a good sign. 6. Goldface. Goldface has since been on the mend, but he was once a villain to both Green Lantern and the Flash. Goldface is a literal name. He was experimenting with gold that had been saturated for the past few hundred years of seawater, and that gave him superpowers. Power over anything gold. His potion also covered his body in the gold, which was as sturdy as it was fashionable. Being technically all yellow, you can understand why he would be an issue for early Green Lanterns. 5. Fiend with 5 faces. The Fiend with 5 faces is the gigantic union of the last gods of Olympia. They were originally 5 individuals, but combined together because they were more powerful together than on their own and had a better chance at survival after their home was destroyed. They awaken once a millennium, they cause some problems, and then they go back to sleep, which is a casual routine. Anunnaki. This alien race is responsible for sinking Atlantis. The Anunnaki are very old. They were at war with the hunter-gatherers for control of Earth, lost obviously, and they've been angry about it ever since. They left some observation ships on the Earth, the arrival of which ended up sinking Atlantis. 3. Baron Dubois. An evil ancient sorcerer, Baron Dubois tricked Aquaman and Aqualad into freeing him from his microscopic prison. He told the heroes that he was shrunk and trapped in a water droplet, and the elixir to save him was in this very dangerous, trap-rigged mountain. The wizard used spells to turn the ocean life against the Atlanteans, but when Dubois finds himself on the wrong end of his own magic, he ends up right back where he started, trapped. 2. Quink. Every Justice League member gets a 5th dimension imp to annoy them. Superman has Mr. Mix, and Aquaman has Quisp. Quisp is more help than a hindrance actually, except for in Aquaman issue 6 when he turned evil. But it turns out it was actually his evil twin, Quink. Quink was tricked by pirate Captain Slade into believing Aquaman was a villain. Then we actually meet a 3rd imp named Quirk that is just off being a menace. Upon realizing that Aquaman is actually good and Captain Slade is bad, Quisp, Quink, and Quirk work together to defeat the captain. 1. Pomoxis. Pomoxis used the ocean against Aquaman in his plan to seize control of Atlantis. Working with pirate Captain Clay, they planted special food that attracts sea monsters on various vessels. The pirate raids the ships for treasure afterwards, and Aquaman gets lured out to that fight, giving Pomoxis the window to seize the throne in his absence. He doesn't keep that position for long as Aquaman allies with those sea monsters and defeats the villain. 10. Captain Demo. I didn't know that Pirate could get cooler, but But then, in walks Captain Demo. He uses a laser cannon, and his ship is rigged to sail underwater. His crew all use experimental tech on a 16th century model ship, and their biggest feat was rigging the entire city of Atlantis to blow if Aquaman didn't follow the captain's every whim. But one oyster signal jammer later, and the day was saved. 9. Animal Master. Gustav, the Animal Master, could have easily had a steady career in the circus business, but unfortunately, he was really greedy. He decided to instead train animals to commit various crimes for him, which was not really a problem for Aquaman until the villain escaped and took his show on the water. Gustav found himself on an island and trained the animal inhabitants to defeat Aquaman, but they were still no match for him and lost. 8. Giant jellyfish. There are giant jellyfish that live in the DC oceans, and they really hate Atlanteans. They hate them because they want to be the leaders of the ocean, so they set out to essentially make their jelly race superior. They have gone to war with the Atlanteans, concealing their true form in metal shells, so the water residents didn't really know what they were up against. In the end, they were all eliminated but 3 that haven't been seen again. 7. Abyssal Dark. A bit more recent with the 2017 debut, Abyssal Dark was awoken by accident. Love it when that happens. Originally sealed away for a millennia as a result of a mystic war, the Abyssal Dark is thought to be the source of all Atlantean magic. Its influence over the seas is pretty limited, so it hasn't caused like many problems past its 3 appearances, but it's still pretty neat. 6. Creature King. Aquaman and Aqualad were tricked by a diver who was an ancient freak. He really wanted to find a mysterious treasure chest with a potion in it that turns the drinker into a 20-foot tall purple monster. I mean, like, to each their own, but that is not how I would choose to spend my day. There is a later version of this character with a very different backstory. Instead of finding a potion and getting his powers, this version was experimented on and became Chimera. 5. Termite Queen. There were a series of seemingly unconnected disasters around the world that turned out to be caused by the Termite Queen and her termite army. They destroyed bridges and train tracks. The queen has the power to mind control termites into being able to chew through metal. Like, sure, why not? In the end, a bird just ate the Termite Queen, and it was very anticlimactic. 4. Amoeba Man. This alien shapeshifter was obsessed with Wonder Woman and sought her hand in marriage. He disguised himself as a knight, but in reality he was a shapeless, nearly invisible blob. Wonder Woman wasn't into the idea of marriage with an alien blob, and his spaceship was destroyed. 3. Paper Man. Falling into a bunch of chemicals was like the way to get powers back in the day, and meek janitor Horace Throssell fell prey to that trend. He fell into chemicals and became paper. He used his new abilities to steal various items, catching the attention of Wonder Woman. He blew into a newspaper company and presumably got turned into a newspaper, which sounds funny, but his ending was actually pretty horrific because he went through the whole printing process, which is ink, cut, and fold. He did return in The Brave and the Bold, but was then lit up by Fireworks Man. 2. Machino. Wonder Woman put this villain in jail for almost 10 years, and then he got revenge almost immediately after escaping in the form of an explosive mask that is impossible to remove. I have questions about this villain because not only was he able to sneak up on Wonder Woman and put it on her in the first place, he somehow acquired and fashioned this material that is Wonder Woman strength proof, resistant to extreme heat and cold, and Wonder Woman literally rubbed the mask with a boulder like sandpaper, and the boulder crumbled. She was only able to get it off by going to the villain and standing next to him until the timer almost wore off and he took it off. Literally, where did this guy even go? And finally, number 1, flashback. This villain should have a comeback. He developed a gas that makes people relive their most painful moments. I guess that is like really close to some more famous villains like Scarecrow, but still. This villain is French and he really doesn't like America. He's held a grudge against every American business after he was orphaned when his father passed in an American company accident. He caught the attention of Wonder Woman and Batman when he attempted to prevent any American business from entering the French market. He was defeated in the end though. 10. Fireworks Man. What it says on the tin, everybody, Fireworks Man is made of fireworks. He looks really cool, and like fireworks, is a walking explosive and can create powerful energy blasts. He got this way all on his own, chemical experiments, which is a classic. During his fight with Wonder Woman, they end up in space and he gets hit by a falling star, and that is the end of him. 9. Baron de Boer. This villain faked his death and now runs around wearing a boar mask. He is not the first Baron de Boer, shockingly. His ancestor was quite famous, and armor belonging to his army is in museums across the world. The Baron decided to steal back all his ancestors' stuff and turn those suits into a robot army. Wonder Woman destroyed his army of armor robots, and de Boer rightfully just gave up. I mean, at that point, what can you really do? 8. Phaeton, son of the sun god Phaeton, almost lit the earth on fire, was banished to a sunless planet, and then got revenge by stealing the sun. This was quite the story. Wonder Woman saved the day by finding a star that could hold the planets in place, and then literally barreling through the earth to let the heat of its core warm the planet until she could get the actual sun back. This is also the comic in which she reveals that she has the power of Amazon mathematics. 7. Dr. Domino. Dr. Domino wears a big domino on his head for some reason. He is described as the world's strangest villain. He attempted to blow up New York, strapping a knocked out Wonder Woman to the rocket and sending her to the Big Apple. Luckily, she did wake up and redirected that rocket to his ship instead, and then we never saw him again. 6. Queen Mikra. Ancient Egyptian Queen Mikra had the power to bring stone sphinxes to life, but apparently she looked a lot like Wonder Woman, so when Wonder Woman went to the museum, she accidentally woke up a bunch of those statues. The queen was resurrected once the sphinxes realized that Wonder Woman wasn't Mikra. In the end, once all the sphinxes were defeated, Queen Mikra just aged to dust. Enrico Lichetti. Enrico believes the world is going to destroy itself, but he's also trying to start that war, so make it make sense, Enrico. Anyways, in an effort to take hold of his future, he decides to move underwater. Figuring out a way for humans to breathe underwater by making them fishmen, Enrico started kidnapping scientists, visionaries, impressive athletes, and forcing them to join his twisted Atlantis. Unlucky for him, he happened to take Peacemaker's girlfriend at the time. In the end, by causing a malfunction with submarines, Enrico sank to his watery demise, because he turned everyone else into a fishman, but not himself. For some reason. Sinestro, or boyfriend. Sinestro was a guy that didn't really grasp the concept of being a superhero. He thought it wasn't fair that there were no heroes or like super powered beings that helped criminals, so he decided to fill that gap in the job market. It brought him head to head with Peacemaker and other heroes like Blue Beetle. He was incredibly goofy and never taken seriously, even when he admitted his crimes to officers. Finally, the Golden Pharaoh. This is a true hidden gem because he never actually made it to print. The Peacemaker issue 6 was never published, but it was fully drawn out and the pages are out there on the internet. The Pharaoh had 3 goals: start a nuclear war, gather all the gold on Earth, and rule the world. Which might sound like a lot and a little bit hard, but when you break it down, it's only like 3 things. Anyways, he wanted the gold to create a golden pyramid that will protect him and his followers from the radiation of the war. So after that's over, he can emerge when it's all done and rule the land with old world attitudes. Of course, Peacemaker destroyed everything and the day was saved, just not the comic obviously, considering it never hit the stands, RIP to them. But starting off, Emil Bork. Starting off with that guy that you most likely have seen because he was actually the first ever Peacemaker villain. A classic rich guy with no moral compass, Bork does everything that he can to cause an international incident. Between selling weapons to both sides of a war, to organizing ambassador dinners with an explosive plan inside, he is giving Peacemaker a run for his money. I mean, not for long though. He made 2 issues as a main character, and then he was lost in the shuffle when Charlton Comics was acquired by DC. Mr. Blaze. Seeking to unleash terrible fire upon the world, but like actual fire, not firepower, Mr. Blaze and his Lava Men are the final villains of Peacemaker's first solo series. After Peacemaker successfully developed a formula to make materials that are immune to flames, this is stolen by Mr. Blaze, a failed circus fire eater. His obsession with fire takes him to the site of a volcanic explosion where the victims turn into fiery lava men. Bonding with the island's inhabitants, Mr. Blaze essentially becomes their leader. He tries to take that fire and destroy multiple cities, but is stopped when Peacemaker literally freezes him in his tracks. Snowflame. Snowflame is a more recent Peacemaker adversary that originated as a New Guardians villain in the 80s that is so insensitive and completely insane. He gets his powers from the disco dust, the fun snow, pick your name for it. When he ingests more of that, he gets more powerful. Snowflame pops up every once in a while because he is just so outrageous, and the last time he was seen, he was holding Peacemaker and Red Bee. He took himself out actually in a manner that I often think about, lives rent-free in my head. Instead of snorting the intended substance, he snorted a poison dart frog. Every day, I wish I could sit in a writer's room at DC, not to fix anything, but just to see how we get to certain places. Beale. Mining accident or ancient wonder, you decide. Created Beale and his survivors. The men discovered a secret underground city while digging one day. The city held powerful weapons, but it came at a price. device. The exposure to the uranium caused the workers to grow intolerant to light and gain powers of shape-shifting. However, that made their regular appearance more just kind of like gray Play-Doh. Their goal is to take over the world by drilling tunnels through every continent. It's a daring plan that doesn't make it very far when Peacemaker destroys their machines and causes the mind to fall in on itself. 5. Annihilator. This villain tried to make Batgirl his wife. Kenneth Anderson discovered a rock with enough juice to power the entire US, but nobody cared. He crashed out about that, experimented on this rock, and it blasted him with energy that turned him into a mutant of some sort with a really big head and even bigger ego. He tried to eliminate everyone in Gotham City and replace the people with a mutant race sired by him. He intended to marry Batgirl because he figured his new power wouldn't work on Supergirl. However, it turns out that heat makes him more evil, so therefore cold makes him nicer. Using her freeze breath, Supergirl saved the day. 4. Super Scavenger. Supergirl actually created this evil, and it's really insane. So David Graham, a secret young gang boss disguised as a college student, was swimming and smacked his head on concrete. Supergirl felt really bad that she wasn't there to save him, so to heal his brain injury, she decided to use Kandorian brain surgery equipment to transfer some of her own brain cells to his head. He briefly gained superpowers because of this, and instead of having like a change of heart, he decided to become the Super Scavenger, spending some of his precious moments with superpowers making an outfit. David decked himself out in a lead mask and yellow and red. He lost his battle with Supergirl due to losing his powers halfway through, so maybe you shouldn't have wasted time on that silly little outfit. 3. Kraken. We call him Kraken because it's actually impossible for a human to properly pronounce this alternate dimensions creature's actual name. Aiming for his god's approval, the alien attacked Argo City, lost, came back years later seeking revenge, discovered it was empty now, and then vowed to eliminate at least one survivor, and that survivor was Supergirl. He faked having magical abilities, and when in reality it was water controlling devices that were easily melted with heat vision. The powerless creature was once again defeated. 2. Hecate. Okay, so Hecate is the true villain, but she possessed Sherry Hatcher. Sherry, a victim of the beauty industry, tried everything to keep her young looks, plastic surgery, makeup, and even the supernatural. That is where Hecate comes in. She promised to bless Sherry with 100 years of beauty if she could steal Supergirl's soul. Supergirl's knowledge of Greek mythology and cleverness won her the battle in the end, and everything was fixed. 1. Graviton Man. This villain caused worldwide chaos on an unprecedented scale without even trying to. Rudolph was smart enough to build an invention that could control gravity, but apparently not smart enough to realize how no gravity would affect the Earth's balance. Pretty soon, natural gravity started to go haywire, and people, cars, lampposts, you name it, were flying around. He ends up fighting an anti-gravity war against Gravity Lord, and it's only when both villains' weapons are completely destroyed that the Earth goes back to normal. 10. Drang the Destroyer. Drang is so evil that he refuses to join the Circle of Evil because they aren't evil enough. As overlord of the Purple Planet, he feeds on the bad energy created by evil deeds. He had a plan called Operation Satan with the intention to reenact the worst crimes in history. Supergirl was sent to capture and or destroy this villain. However, Drang stole her powers. Supergirl was only able to defeat the villain through a clever plan. She brought all the worst criminals to the planet, and their combined evil energy caused Drang to explode. 9. Positive Man. Once a 30th century alien scientist, he destroyed his planet, and the explosion turned him into a being made of positive ions. He's really jealous of living beings, which like, he could have just not built a doomsday device and stayed alive, but whatever. His jealousy drives him to destroy other inhabited worlds, and that is a problem for Supergirl. Supergirl could survive the villain, but could not strike him because he's intangible. So how do you fix a problem like that? 1960s logic. The explosion conveniently created a wild negative ion creature that Supergirl was able to trick into a collision with Positive Man, eliminating both of them. 8. Maelstrom. Maelstrom is doing things never done before. She's deeply in love with Darkseid, which I didn't know was possible, but she devised a plan to win his affection by bringing him Superman's noggin. When that didn't work, she tried again, only to get banished to another world in the end by Supergirl. 7. Decay. This villain sustains itself by stealing the life force of others by causing their body to decay at a rapid pace. Grabbing his target, Decay speeds up that process, and within minutes, a once healthy individual is now a pile of of bones on the floor. Supergirl wasn't able to defeat this foe on her own. Sai stepped in and used powerful energy to transform the monster back into a man. 6. Night Flame, the manifestation of Supergirl's dark side and subconscious desire to kick the bucket. She comes from a pocket dimension called the Innerverse and used magic to open a portal to the physical world. She ripped Supergirl's soul from her body, taking it back to the Innerverse with the intention of taking over Supergirl's body and powers. Supergirl used Night Flame's magic against her, and the villain was sucked out of existence. Therapy or whatever this was, you decide. 5. Thunderball. Thunderball is definitely on the more popular side when it comes to Iron Man villains, but I thought he was neat. With intellect comparable to Bruce Banner, Dr. Elliot Franklin managed to invent a mini gamma-ray explosive. Unfortunately, Franklin wasn't able to get funding in the traditional ways, so he turned to robberies. While in prison, he met the men that formed the Wrecking Crew, a criminal team powered by various wrecking equipment enhanced by magic. Thunderball's weapon of choice was, of course, a wrecking ball. 4. Gargantus. Gargantus was a robot made by a mysterious alien race that kind of honestly looked like puppets when I saw them, but they had the intention to rule over humanity as alien races usually do. He was modeled after early humanity and did manage to take control of an entire city. The problem was a resident of that city had a date with Tony Stark, and when she didn't show up, he looked into why, leading to the discovery of this early alien takeover. Iron Man defeated the robot by literally ripping him apart with magnets. 3. Spores. In Iron Man 157, these random alien spores were en route to attack Earth, but they took a pit stop in Iron Man's space station to fight the hero. The spores eventually grew in size to this snake worm thing. Eventually, we do find out from this other alien race that the spores, they fly across the galaxy, consuming mechanical energy. Iron Man fixes this by altering their metabolic modes so they take nourishment from starlight instead, and they roam around more out of curiosity from now on. 2. The Mad Pharaoh. Now this is a wild ride. The Mad Pharaoh was from ancient Egypt, of course. He rebelled against Cleopatra, but when he realized that he was losing, he used dark magic to place himself in suspended animation and tucked himself away for thousands of years. Discovered in the modern age by Iron Man and awoken, the Mad Pharaoh decided to use modern technology to go back in time to again try and defeat Cleopatra. But he needed Tony Stark's help, so he created a disease that would decimate Earth unless Tony agreed, of course. Using the Chariot of Time, the pair did make it back to ancient Egypt, but Iron Man faked his death. He went to help Cleopatra, and the Mad Pharaoh fell on his sword after attempting to flee back to the future. 1. Weasel. Weasel made the top of this list because of his rags to riches story. This small-time criminal managed to break into Stark Industries and steal the case with Tony's Iron Man armor inside. He then went on a crime spree dressed as the superhero. Eventually, Tony tracked him down in an older version of the Iron Man suit, and though he was at a disadvantage with older technology, his advantage was that he designed the suit that Weasel was wearing, so it wasn't hard for him to trick Weasel into using up all the suit's energy and then later arrest him. 10. Technovore. Technovore is more popular, but is still kind of an obscure Iron Man villain, appearing in various TV shows and even anime, as well as of course the comics. Technovore originated from nanotech created on a space station, and believe it or not, Tony Stark was actually against nanotech at first, which is funny considering where the MCU ended with his suits. What started out as a small problem quickly turned into a waking nightmare. Technovore absorbed anything that it came in contact with. In the end, the nanotech monster was uncontainable, and the only option was to cause an explosion big enough to take most of it out. A small sample did survive though, and was later found at source control. 9. Doctor Strange. Now this is not the hero that you're thinking of, but instead the less popular scientist, Carlo Strange. His lack of ethics and wild theories lost him respect within the scientific community, and also eventually sent him to prison. He was struck by lightning, which increased the electrical energy of his brain, making him smarter. He used his new intelligence to build a machine capable of mind-controlling Iron Man and had the hero free him from jail. With his new freedom, he vowed to take over the world, and to do so, he launched a powerful explosive as a warning into the atmosphere, and basically said there's more where that came from and told every country to surrender to him. Obviously, it doesn't work. Iron Man beat him, but Strange escaped and later expired at the hands of the Punisher. 8. Commander Kraken. Commander Kraken, the modern-day pirate, worked with Hydra and kidnapped some Stark employees, and of course, Tony Stark himself. Equipped with an electricity shooting sword and bionic leg that allows him to fly, the Commander had everything he needed to give Iron Man a run for his money. He lost in the end, of course, and Iron Man destroyed his fleet, but he did give it a really good try. 7. The Demolisher. From the second Iron Man comic, we have the Demolisher, a robot created by Drexel Ford to destroy Iron Man. Unfortunately, the robot went a little off script and tried to eliminate more than just Iron Man, including Kord's daughter. The villain and the hero had to work together to destroy this creation. Much later, like decades later, a copy or maybe even like the same robot popped up again and was defeated when Iron Man literally ripped it apart. 6. Minotaur. Minotaur was once a regular guy with a mad scientist father. The problem was he also had an unspecified but incurable disease. Not to worry though, because his mad scientist father found a mystical chemical recipe in the ruins of a maze, and he was willing to just try that. It did work at first, and his son was healed, but then he just kept changing and eventually became a Minotaur. His father forced him to raid nearby villages for materials, which caught the attention of Iron Man. There was this big, epic battle in a secret underground cavern that collapsed eventually on Minotaur and his father, and they haven't been seen again. 5. The Planner. The Planner managed to successfully frame Captain America for a series of on-TV robberies. His goal was to lure out the real Captain America and steal his shield. He believed that the shield had extra powers to it. He refused to believe that it was simply a sheet of metal that was just, like a strong metal, but it's not the shield that holds the power, it's the person that uses it. In the end, Captain America does take down the Planner and presumably arrests him. 4. Butterfly. Dr. Vitrioli was a curator for a museum that organized the very exhibition he intended to rob. He took up the villain identity Butterfly. I don't really know why though, because he looks more like a mosquito to me. I rest my case. Butterfly was actually eliminated mid-air when Cap threw his shield at him, and the artifacts were hopefully returned. 3. Balthar. Balthar is a sorcerer practicing dark magic, and in an effort to gain absolute power, he decided to call upon Satan. In exchange for enhanced abilities, Satan requested that he be brought the greatest champion for good, aka Captain America. Balthar sets out to capture Captain America with his new power of literally evil eyes. If he looks at you too long, you kick the bucket. Balthar is defeated when he catches sight of his own reflection in Captain America's shield. Cap then goes on to literally fight Satan in this comic, and he of course wins because of a goodness in his own eyes. You really do have to love the early Captain America lore. 2. Creeper. Creeper was sent by the Yahtzees to cause as much chaos in the US as possible. So he lied, he stole, and in particular, he stole 3 rubies with major cultural significance in a bid to upset an important treaty signing. Captain America was able to uncover all 3 rubies that were hidden in separate locations around everywhere. The Creeper's location actually is still unknown though. He got away in the end. The good news is the treaty was signed, so we gotta hold on to those victories, and the Creeper hasn't been seen since 1942, so I think we're probably good there. But number 1, the Fiddler. The Fiddler was a Yahtzee that perfected the art of destruction through the violin. He learned what pitches could cause physical pain, shatter eardrums, and even trigger explosives. He planted explosives in many senators' radios, and the idea was that he would perform on the radio and eventually hit the notes of death, triggering the radios to blow. And it actually worked, so he might just be the most successful evil on this list. In the end, he was defeated by his own gimmick when he tried to eliminate Bucky, who had the foresight to plug his ears with cotton and instead managed to eliminate himself with his own mad music. 10. Gorilla Man. Starting with probably the most popular on the list today, with about 40 appearances and a really weird origin story. Arthur was a surgeon that specialized in gorilla to human transplants. One day, the gorillas that he was using revolted and transplanted Arthur's head onto a gorilla body as revenge or something? I don't know, but Gorilla Man briefly fought Captain America in the Marvel Age Annual, but he's faced off against many Marvel heroes. 9. Allergen Gang. You know those spring allergies that just won't quit? Well, it could actually be these villains. The Allergen Gang has one job, and that is to spread allergens throughout the city to cause specifically breathing problems. The gang is made up of the leader, Allergen Owl, Dust Dragon, Feather Boa, Furball, Mold Patrol, Rugburn, Stogies, and Asthma Monster. These creatures, they were created when Marvel partnered with Glaxo Inc., which is an asthma inhaler company. 8. Black Talon. Black Talon was once a very talented artist, Pascal Horta. Unfortunately, Pascal ended up in an accident and needed a right hand transplant. The donor was a really terrible person that strangled. The donor's hand presumably started to warp Pascal's mind. He could still control the hand, but I guess like the donor's evil was so great that it led to him painting more grotesque and violent images, and eventually move on to committing crimes and leaving paintings of victims' last moments as his calling card. In the end, he was captured and taken to prison. 7. Tybalt Circus. This is also the circus of crime in more modern comics, but the OG circus was a Yahtzee front, which is not that surprising. Their job was to travel around and take out high-ranking officials. Every night, to decide who will be that victim, leader Fritz would spin the wheel of death that had all the targets' faces, and whoever it landed on was the unlucky party. Now, this is actually, unfortunately, a pretty smart idea. A traveling caravan of people trained to do the outlandish and dangerous, like sword work and swallowing, tiger and lion control, trapeze. Like, when you really think about it, a circus is a very dangerous place and has some pretty dangerous people. In the end, Cap saved the day and Fritz returned to Germany, where he was eliminated. 6. Black Toad. I love this one because he looks like a Batman knockoff in a bedsheet, but his name is Black Toad. How does that work? Chuck MacArthur managed a star baseball team, and when that team got really big, he wanted to own the team. The owner wasn't actually willing to sell though, and Chuck lost it. He took on the villainous title of Black Toad and started hurling poison darts at people, including his own star players. At the next game, understandably, no one wanted to play, but Captain America was like, I'll join the game and handle this. Black Toad rigged the baseball into a... Luckily, Captain America was able to throw it far enough in the sky that no one was hurt. In the end, Black Toad couldn't handle his failure and was his own demise. 5. Dr. Time. From Spidey Super Stories 44, Dr. Time controls time using a magical clock or just magic clock abilities. Obviously, he tries to use them to take over the world. Spider-Man and this issue's teammate, Vision, have a hard time containing this villain, and he's only defeated when he forgets to wind his magic clock and his powers all but disappear. 4. Skinhead. Web of Spider-Man 56, and this is a crazy story. Edward Cross was a Jewish boy that turned into the very thing that hated him, Yahtzee with an N, because we can't say the actual word on here. Yeah, he joined one of those groups and basically went insane. He tried to hurt people with this group, including planting explosives, and in the ensuing battle with Spider-Man got a corrosive but not lethal substance on him that essentially made him a man-shaped dripping blob. Eventually, he was reverted back to his human form and taken to jail. 3. The Empathoid. Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man 6. The Empathoid is what it says on the tin, an empathetic robot. It was created by an alien race to simply just stay attuned to the emotions of its master, but being a robot, it outlived its creators and eventually shut down, only to be woken up years later by Morbius's big emotions. It began craving bigger emotions like fear and violence and panic, and fused with the vampire, which is how it ended up on Earth. It eventually fused with Spider-Man, and Peter came up with an unconventional way of getting rid of the pest, taking himself to a football game. All the emotion in the stadium caused the robot to overload and shut down. 2. Fusion. Amazing Spider-Man 208. Twin brothers Hubert and Pinky might be identical, but their lives couldn't be more different. One a scientist and one a janitor, but soon their paths would cross in an unexpected way when Hubert's experiment went sideways, combining the two brothers together. Luckily, it wasn't permanent. They can fuse and separate at will, but the real power is their energy absorption. Any form of energy can increase their size and strength. Hubert wanted to use the power for bad, Pinky for good. In the end, they were captured by the Stranger and kept for observation. And 1. Persuader, Web of Spider-Man 35. Roland Rayburn was a mutant, and he didn't know. He just thought he was really good at persuading people. That was actually, of course, his mutant ability, and he has a pretty goofy weakness to it, where if his target knows that he can persuade them, he just can't do it anymore. It's really weird. He was forced to work for Kingpin and ended up facing off against Spider-Man and the Punisher. The latter ended up being Roland's end. 10. Silencer. From Peter Parker, Spider-Man / Elektra 98. The Silencer is a mob boss, and he looks kind of like a cross between Freddy Krueger and Slenderman. He's the kind of mob boss that nobody wants to work for though, because his own staff are terrified of him, because literally no one is safe from being silenced. I get the whole like instill fear thing in your workers, but also cool it. You can't be a mob boss without your mob. He also only speaks Italian, and he's seemingly just made of darkness. It's classic mysterious darkness composition, but in the end he was absorbed into a rock and never seen again. 9. Spark. From Web of Spider-Man 74, Spark was a performance artist in the modern avant-garde. He sits on a stage in front of an audience for 15 minutes doing nothing kind of realm. He was recruited by the villain group Avant-Garde, a team of artists scientists with enhanced abilities and bound souls. Spark's abilities were enhanced strength and some level of energy/electricity. 8. Megawatt. From Spider-Man Unlimited 2, Megawatt is a criminal turned struggling actor turned supervillain turned successful actor. Dirk Layden needed a job quickly, so he agreed to the one thing that you shouldn't agree to in the Marvel Universe, which is being the subject of a mad scientist experiment. It's how he got the ability to absorb and project electricity, becoming Megawatt. He fled to Australia after a job gone wrong, got a job there as a stuntman, then worked his way up to becoming a famous movie star, and also, of course, supervillain. 7. Akasha the Living Pharaoh. Sensational Spider-Man 19. She's living the dream of every Egypt-obsessed kid. Akasha was out riding her bike and collided with the living pharaoh just like pieces. She was physically okay, but didn't know that she had absorbed the living pharaoh like spirit. So when her family took a trip to the Museum of Natural History, the Egypt exhibit ended up awakening that part of her, and she gained mystical abilities, a staff, the ability to blast energy, and also the desire to revert the Earth to ancient Egypt's glory days. At the end of the day, Spider-Man does save her, but she does also grow wings and then just like leaves, and we barely see her again. 6. White Dragon. Amazing Spider-Man 184. Leader of an NYC gang, the White Dragon is a regular martial artist masterman with a sick outfit. It breathes fire and gas and has claws. He appeared a few times over the years, but in the end was sacrificed, but he wanted to be, so that makes it a little better, I guess. 5. Icon, a Wakandan biochemist who experimented on himself, resulting in gaining the ability to turn himself and others into wood. He believed that Black Panther did not respect him as a scientist, and as revenge, he decided to crash a Wakandan celebration and start turning people to wood. When someone is turned to wood, they're then under his control. Black Panther wouldn't let the Avengers attack the wooden people though, as they are still his subjects, but then out of literally nowhere comes Jungle Man to distract Icon, and it gives the Avengers their moment to start the fight, and Icon surrenders quickly. 4. King Cadaver. King Cadaver also kind of looks like an alien. He's not an alien, but his head is giant and fuzzy and green. He was part of a ritual led by our number one today actually, which caused the appearance and also granted him the ability to create large amounts of pain through mental attacks. Mirrors enhanced his abilities, according to the king himself. In the end, he was stopped by his former ally, number 9 Venom, and then he was stepped on by a dinosaur. It was a wild ride. 3. Baron Macabre. Another victim of the resurrection altar, Macabre gained the ability to raise the dead. They became zombies. His powers were a little unstable though, and the ability to create zombies is something that you want under control, so he stole some tech from Wakanda, only to get one-hit KO'd in the end by the Black Panther. 2. Kibber the Cruel. Cruel was a scientist that claimed that he was going to invent teleportation, and then promptly disappeared from the public eye. Heading to the mountains, Cruel was involved in an absolutely insane experiment gone wrong. He became attached to his lab floor. Like, he's literally just a glob on the floor, and he gets things done using his androids, so he figured out a system in the end, but truly it was so weird. And finally, number 1, Somber. A Wakandan priest, Somber is not comforting in the slightest. His touch is corrosive and painful to the point where even Black Panther could pass out from the effects. There is some suggestion of telepathic powers, and maybe even like a vampire thing going on. His face is this really disturbing mask with fangs embedded, which he uses to attack his victims. In the end, T'Challa kicked him in quicksand and he was gone. 10. Hatch 22. This is definitely one of the strangest villains I've ever seen, and I've done a lot of these videos, so that is saying something. Hatch is from the future, the 6th era of man. Humanity has somehow evolved into these purple, big-brained people things with psychic powers. Hatch was accidentally brought back in time, crashed out about that, evaporated a person, but then got knocked out by Black Panther and sent back to his time. 9. Venom with 2 M's, so he's not to be confused with the more popular one. Horatio was on the bad end of a chemistry accident and was left with scars covering his whole face. He didn't get any powers from this incident, but he did lose a lot of confidence and went into hiding. He filled his days with practicing snake charming and building up an immunity to all types of venom. 8. Salamander Karul. He worked for Eric Killmonger, and he was the designated bow and arrow guy. There's always one on every team. Salamander's body was mutated by the resurrection altar to produce produce thorns from blisters all over his body. The thorns are toxic as well, just for a little bit of extra flair. 7. Madame Slay. This is such an iconic villain name for an iconic woman. Madame Slay controls leopards, whether that be through training them or a special power we don't know. She literally just lounges around with leopards all day. Talk about living the dream. She also worked closely with Eric. 6. Destructon. This robot belonged to Zemo, and it actually faced off against Black Panther, Sharon Carter, and Captain America, and almost won, so it is pretty powerful. The only reason it was stopped was because Cap figured out where its controls were located and was able to damage them and incapacitate the robot. 5. Plastoid. Plastoid was a humanoid robot built to eliminate. One thing that was, I guess, like helpful to his opponents is he had a plate on his chest with his operational efficiency. If it's a 10, he's good, 1 bad, you get it. At one point, he did jump to a 50 and grew in size to meet that power. However, he wasn't really built for such a stark jump, and eventually it aided in his downfall. 4. Lady Killer. Quite literally, he just sucked. He didn't like women, no reason, he just didn't. He would hunt them down under the belief they needed to be punished for simply existing. He had no powers, but it highlighted that sometimes the worst villains are the ones that actually exist in the real world and are not simply outlandish creatures. 3. Tribune, the actor turned modern day demon. A right extremist, Tribune was an actor who took his beliefs too far, creating a judge villain persona for himself. Tribune carried around a gavel that could expel fire. He tried to cause a national incident, but Daredevil of course stopped him. Tribune ended up faking his death and fled to California, where he is still acting up, but in his civilian identity now. 2. Vapora. She comes from a one-shot that was a public service announcement about the dangers of gasoline fumes. So she was really just symbolic of a greater problem and didn't actually have a personal agenda. She just kind of popped in wherever. 1. Duke Claus Kruger, the ruler of Lichtenbad. He met Daredevil on an exchange program in the US. He lured Matt back to his country in an attempt to gather all the greatest minds in the world, but his mind wasn't so great. He greatly miscalculated his own castle walls and lunged at Daredevil and literally fell off of that castle to his